Folks, top of the hour, one after two. This is Issues St. Kitts Nevis. Of course, I'm EK. And as promised, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honorable Dr. Terrance Drew, is in studios with us this afternoon. Dr. Drew, welcome back to the studios of Freedom FM. Good to see you. Hope you're in good health.
Good afternoon, EK. Thank you very much
Right.
for having me as usual. Well, I try to do the best for my health.
There you go.
Exercise, just like you don't eat chicken and meats. Not like, unlike you.
Rasta vibes. Oh, it's good, man. It's good.
And I limit the alcohol and don't smoke. Very,
Yes.
very little. But nonetheless, EK, I want to thank all those who are tuning, our people who are here in St. Kitts and Nevis and those who are abroad, of course, and to say to all of them a Happy New Year. If I hadn't had the opportunity to reach their ears as yet, and to really say to them that their government is poised to make greater strides in 2023. So, EK, first of all, let me wish the oldest viable political party in the English-speaking Caribbean happy birthday. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party makes 91. We just had our 90th church service, which was held this last Sunday at the Antioch Baptist Church. I want to thank the pastor, of course, for his hospitality and his congregants. It was a well-attended church service, and it, of course, accomplished what we sought for it to accomplish. And so we are very appreciative of that. I also want to say that the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Movement, it is more than a political party. It is really a movement. Started way back 91 years ago. And through that movement, a number of critical things were achieved. We can remember, of course, that we used to call it the Workers' League then, that became the party afterwards, that in those days it was illegal to have unions, and there was no trades and labor union. There was a Workers' League. And we know what took place with the Buckley's Uprising in 1935, January, as well as we commemorate that day. And out of that, a number of critical political things were set to take place. And so for those who lost their lives, there will be a commemoration, a recognition this Saturday, I think. I would have to get the date and back check. But as usual, I want to thank the Rastafarian movement here in St. Kitts and Nevis, who has really maintained the recognition of that day. And I know that if persons would have listened to our post-cabinet briefing, they would have heard what we are doing when it comes to dealing with the issue of the Buckley's Uprising and having a recognition for that in Buckley's. And I think the parliamentary representative will speak more to that. I had the opportunity to sit with the Rastafarian community and we discussed that at length. And it is time that something is done. This has to be a fundamental part of our history, and we have to give it the importance and the recognition that is so deserved. So more on that to come, EK. But I want to remind people that we would have gone from leaders from Manchester all the way to myself. Manchester, Robert Bratcher, Paul Southwell, Comrade Robert Bratcher. And I use the word comrade today because I'm speaking specifically of our party, Comrade Paul Southwell, come to Comrade Moore, Comrade Douglas, and today Comrade Drew. And so over the years, the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Movement would have made significant strides, not for itself, but for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I dare say the region, and we would have had an impact on the world. We would have brought adult suffrage, which is the right for people to vote. That came in 1952. So the very right to vote was brought because of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Movement. Second, comprehensive secondary education, the right to go to high school. I mean, we take these things for granted, but these things had to be fought for. We also talk about access to health care. We know that under the leadership of Clarence Fitzroy Bryant, he was also the Minister of Health. A lot of people don't realize that. It was not Jane France. We were able to develop a system of having health centers around St. Kitts and Nevis, especially to prevent what used to happen, lack of health care. And used to have back in those days where people would born their children at home in cane fields and so forth, and that sought to address multiple health issues, especially then the infectious diseases. When we speak about land ownership, we know that the acquisition of the land took place in the 1970s under the leadership of our first national hero, who was the leader of the St. Kitts Nevis labor movement. Then, when it comes to social security, also in the 70s, it came after the Providence Fund and Social Security, which we enjoy, one of the best throughout the Caribbean. That was started in the 1970s. And it goes all the way up to independence. That movement also ensured that we had a deep water port, an airport, so that water, energy, or electricity really giving us the infrastructure necessary for the building of a modern nation. So most of what we enjoy today as a direct result of the work of the St. Kitts Nevis labor movement. And so irrespective of people's political persuasion today, they have a lot. They, of course, will also be minded to say thanks to the St. Kitts Nevis labor movement. Everybody in St. Kitts and Nevis benefited from it. The fact they have a 40-hour work week, things we take for granted. The fact they have the right to play, meaning entertainment and so forth. These things we take for granted today had to be fought for. And the movement started long before, but officially in 1932. And it's probably and the movement had to work 20 years before we could have achieved adult suffrage. So these things did not happen overnight. They were consistent hard work by the leaders of the movement, by the supporters of the movement, the sympathizers of the movement, the rank and file of the movement. Really a people on the move achieving these significant milestones. And therefore, I want to say happy birthday to the St. Kitts Nevis labor movement. And so, Ike, as I've said, that the job is not over. There's a lot to be done. The St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party has enjoyed the most years in government of any political party in the Federation. And it has done so not because of anything else except, I would say, the mercies of God and the principles on which it stands. The principle of for the good that we can do not only in words but also in deed. When you look at all these achievements, one would quickly recognize that a lot of self-sacrifice had to be put in order to achieve these major milestones of achievements and development and so forth. And so we must recognize that our leaders would have given a lot, our people in general would have given a lot to make sure that we would have achieved these things. So it is a proud history. So when you say you're a member of the Labour Party, as you know, people like to say, I'm a Labour man, I'm a Labour woman, I'm a Labour, that has a great deal of significance. And that is why people should be proud to say that. Ike, when we look at where we are today, I want to say that we came back into office in just last year, 2023. But before I get there, even from 2022, but 1995 to 2015, there were significant achievements under the leadership of the Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas. He took poverty from a rate of 40-something% down to about 14-15%, transformed the economy from a sugar-based economy to a service-based, financial-based economy, which of course took us into an acceleration of our development, housing revolution, opportunities for all to get an opportunities for all to go to university and achieve tertiary level education, expansion of land ownership, expansion of growth in wealth, personal wealth, and generational wealth. And these achievements, of course, cannot be denied, irrespective of one's personal feelings. And so I wanted to record that as well. And today, with a 7-year break, the party got back into office with the blessings of the people through the democratic process in 2022. And we have only been in office for a few months. even though for some people it feel like a very long time, based on a number of things also that we would have achieved. And sometimes when people reflect on history, history is crunched. So things that took maybe 2 decades, people think it took a day. For example, to go from the forming of the party 1932 to adult suffrage 1952, how many years that? It's 20 years. 20 years. It took the movement, and a whole uprising in Buckley's had to be a part of it in order to achieve that. And then the other things that I'm talking about, the land and social security, those took place in the 70s. So if you go from the 50s to the 70s, that's another, yes, exactly. So it took a long time to achieve that. So I want to put all those things in perspective because that's how human minds work. That when you reflect on things, extensive period of time, your mind crunches it into a short period. Just think about it. You think your childhood, let's say you're 20 now, right, EK? Right.
You
Right.
wish.
Your previous
I'm just a
10,
couple of years behind
just
you,
a couple
sir.
of years, your previous 10 years, you will crunch in a short space of
Right.
time and did not realize that a decade or two would have passed. But it took a while, but the work was consistent and the achievements were worth it. Now, let's look at where we are today with our present government, our present administration, what we have achieved thus far. We opened up the country very early. That set the stage for what is happening now in tourism. Had we not opened up the country so swiftly, we would not have had the type of tourist season that we are having. And as a matter of fact, the tourist season might have been affected negatively because of the length of time that was taken to open the country when the science would have suggested since in May we could have done it. But we know it was done for political reasons. Tens of millions of dollars were lost as a result of this bad, unscientific decision. We were also able to pay the gratuitous payment to those who did not take the vaccine and who had registered with the Labor Department and had their situation investigated, which we had promised. We also paid an honorarium to, before only a few handful of persons got the honorarium and they hid it from the people. Eventually, we saw a leaked document which showed that the then minister got $27,000. And it was really a travesty. And that is why we thought that the honorarium should have been paid, and it was paid. And we say again, it's for those who are considered frontline workers who, in the course of their normal work, risk their lives, who were public servants. And so we did that for them. Again, we gave a double salary for those also who may not have been a frontline worker but would have worked hard to keep the government going, and that was the justification for it. We also started the Children Health Fund, where no child will die because of lack of financial resources. Even if they have to go overseas, we will partner with others like PALS and so forth to make sure that those children get the care. This has been something that we have done. First, children have benefited from this. We also pay the dividend, which was the first, I think, in the Caribbean. A shot at sharing resources with the people of the country. We see that this is done in many other countries, especially the oil-rich countries, where if they have enough, they will share directly with their people. As a matter of fact, it used to be done in Libya, and I think it's done in Saudi Arabia and maybe some countries of Western Europe. But nonetheless, there are countries that do that based on the national resource. So they look at the national resource and see when it's feasible and possible. And it was possible last December, and so we did it. We also did a small business loan at Development Bank, where we want small businesses to get an opportunity to recuperate and rejuvenate themselves. And so that small business loan facility is going well at Development Bank. I want to thank the leaders and workers at the Development Bank for the work that they have been doing thus far, giving small businesses an opportunity to reboot in this post-COVID world. I want to also talk about what we are doing when it comes to water. We would have invested a lot. I want to thank the minister who is responsible, the Honorable Congress Maynard, for that deal we had to make with Marriott so that we can at least get water to people's home. Water is basic, and when we got into office, we recognized that water was left on the back shelf, and a lot of persons throughout the day cannot be guaranteed 24-hour supply of water. Some people went days without water. And, in my own constituency, in Keyon and St. Peter's, and I'll give an update to that, but we had to do that deal to make sure. When it comes to energy, when we got in, the generators were old. We also came in when the generators were the temporary ones that they had were giving trouble to the point where we had load shedding. We immediately bought new generators, and we are in the process right now of getting generators to rent generators while we are buying our permanent generators. Those will cost us, I think, about $35 million each. But we want to have two of them, which can work both with traditional fossil fuel and renewable energy. So it'll be part of our renewable energy build out. But we have gone ahead and starting to look at the water, which I'll update afterwards. So the water and energy, I want our people to know that we are very serious about the water situation. And when it comes to energy, we will buy those generators and then look at the green energy transformation. This is a major plank that we are, of course, seeking to achieve as well. Now, when we look at, we are also pushing for good governance, and I will speak to the legislative agenda. But so far, we have achieved those significant milestones, which, when people reflect many years down the road, they realize that some of them were groundbreaking, and to the point where some of them were history-making as well. Even in our governance, we're making sure that everybody gets an opportunity. Persons of the more mature age, persons who are young, women, men, so that in St. Kitts and Nevis, that people can have an equal opportunity irrespective of their religion, their background, whatever difference there might be, so that this really functions as an open society, giving everybody that opportunity that he or she deserves. And therefore, we are pushing to that. When it comes to good governance, we are pushing on that as well, and I'll talk to that in my update. But I just want to say a couple of quick things, EK, about my constituency number 8. As you know, I have not been speaking much about the constituency because I was dealing to settle down the country. But we're at a point now where I can update the country as to where my constituency is going. I'm not only the parliamentary representative, but I'm also the Prime Minister. However, I want to thank the ministers who are working so hard, who have now settled in a significant way. And that has, of course, afforded the opportunity, which I've always been waiting for, to get back out into my constituency and among my people. Just yesterday, I was in Connery. Today, I intend to be in Connery again. Tomorrow, I'll be in St. Peter's, in Keyon. I'll be back in my community where I really think the best politics is. But when it comes to St. Peter's, there are a couple of questions that I want to answer. The road to St. Peter's. We know, and I spoke about it, I even did a video on it, that the road to St. Peter's was axed out of the planned resurfacing of the Island Main Road, which took a number of years. St. Peter's, we were told that we are not part of the Island Main Road network, even though St. Peter's is the largest community outside of Bastia and growing, and will grow significantly. And so I want to say, as I'm a member of the St. Peter's community, grew up in St. Peter's, continue to live in St. Peter's, live most of my life in St. Peter's. My property is in St. Peter's. And I want to say to the people of St. Peter's today that in the last budget, we have allotted millions of dollars to get the road to St. Peter's done. And that will be done. St. Peter's will not be left behind when it comes to this significant infrastructural development. The other thing I want to say is that the health center in St. Peter's was left abandoned, undone. If you go there, there's a sign that says, health center coming soon. And up to now, they did not deliver the health center. I want to say again, we have allotted in the budget monies to complete the St. Peter's Health Center. And if any more is needed, we will make sure that that is, of course, appropriated for that project. I also want to say to the people of St. Peter's that the playfield and the young people, that too will be upgraded, and we will put on the roof to our stadium. And as the FIFA field is developing, we want our field to develop as well. Housing, we will make sure that we build our houses there in St. Peter's as well. And so St. Peter's will be very much a part of the infrastructural development and advancement. But the road and the health center, those are critical matters that have to be addressed, not next year, but this year. In this short period that we have been in government, the St. Peter's significant matters will be addressed. For 7 years, they abandoned St. Peter's when it came to the infrastructural development. No roads, no health center that abandoned. And therefore, we are saying that those things need to be done, among the other things that we'll be doing for St. Peter. So I wanted to address that, EK, to let people know. In Connery, we are going to start the playfield in Connery in the first quarter. That had been an issue. We heard that last election, they said they had the steel at the port. Well, I inquired if the steel was at the port. There was no steel at the port. They actually fooled the people of Connery when they talk about steel at the port to build stadium. We have now gotten funding to do that, and Connery can look forward to have their playfield along with housing and so forth. And so we're going to do our housing development because we promise a significant number of houses which we will deliver. But when it comes to Keys, there's some infrastructural development that we need there in terms of completing some roads, the community center, and housing as well. And in Keyon, the water situation is a terrible situation. I want to update the people that BEAD is here. The drill or the rig is already functional. It is to start very soon. I want to thank Mr. Isaac, who himself is a resident of Keyon, who himself is a major investor in BEAD. So here's a Keyon man who is known as a financial man who is using his field of endeavor to solve a major problem in Keyon. For 7 years, BEAD was stopped. Had BEAD continued, we would not have had the water situation that we are having now. But I want to say to the people that that was one of the first things that we made sure. And I speak to Mr. Isaac frequent enough, and he updates me on it, along with the minister, the Honorable Congress Maynard, who has also been putting effort behind this. And I want to say that drilling in Keyon is scheduled to start soon. We intend to solve the water problem this year. That is a serious impetus, and we intend to deal with the energy problem this year, our housing issue, and when we start to build houses, that would create jobs and stimulate the economy. So when I look at this, but one of the other things I wanted to touch, EK, was the student loan matter. We have a plan coming for student loan. As you know, we met the development bank in a mess, and we will update the public as to the audit of the development bank. I want to say to the people, no need to lose hope. The team there, led by a board, a competent board, and a competent CEO and his team, they have stabilized the bank. The bank now is getting ready to start its student loan program. There was no money left for the student loan program, and therefore we have to totally refinance that. But we have a plan working with the Ministry of Finance to make sure that our students have access to monies so that they can, of course, go study and come back and ply their trade and help to develop their country. And so I wanted to touch on that. I also wanted to touch on the issue of minimum wage, where we have put the committee together. The committee, is coming together now. That would have been mentioned in the post-cabinet briefing. If it was not, I just want to update the people of this country that was a major discussion in our cabinet deliberation over the past few months. And so we are going to address that as well. The issue of national health insurance, I want to say that our advisor in health, Dr. Patrick Martin, will present his first findings to the health management team, which met this morning, the new health management team, which will transform healthcare here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And I also want to thank Ambassador and CEO of NCI, the Honorable Cedric Liebert, His Excellency, who himself had spent many years as an insurance man who is also collaborating to make sure that we can bring this to our people. And so, EK, I wanted to update our people on these significant things when it comes to our country's development. And so, EK, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to update our people. And I am, of course, open to any questions that you might have.
All right. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. We do appreciate you dropping by, as per usual, on a Wednesday when time permits. Just a couple of questions, a follow-up questions.
Yes.
On the matter of the student loans,
Yes.
there have been some reports that people are still receiving bills from the CFBC. It was one of your promises to have tuition at the CFBC free. Is that already in place, or is there an update that you can offer
Yes,
to us?
that is already in place. That the tuition at CFBC is free at that particular time. I have to see when the bill came, if the bill is an old bill from when they were there, and then we can look at that and also say probably let's look at loan forgiveness or debt forgiveness with respect to that.
Right, so it
But
would be new.
yes, it wouldn't be new. It might have been an old one
Right.
that they would have had a bill before.
So those
we
who are
put
going
in.
into CFBC
They
now,
don't have to pay.
pay.
No.
All right.
No tuition. And if any of them is faced to pay any tuition, please bring that to the attention of my office, for example, or the Ministry of Education, because tuition is free. Our students will not pay for college. We want our students to continue to educate themselves and advance themselves so that we can become a more educated society, which positions us to really compete effectively in this post-COVID 2023 world's economy.
All right. On the matter of the CBI, there was recently a situation where a gentleman was arrested for fraud. Somebody would have asked you the question, but
Yes.
they did not get the specific name of the
Right.
gentleman. So
Yeah.
they would like an update on that.
So I think they might have had a date, but let me say that same gentleman of who they speak to, I would like to say that what we did, we got the information from Interpol even before. And I want to thank the PS who quickly, because when these things come through, you can never tell. We quickly get in touch with Interpol and we deactivate their passports and so forth. And so we have a keen eye as to what happening with access to our passports out there. So we are being prudent and responsible and making sure we work with the international community, making sure that security continues to be one of our top priorities internationally. And so we work with the necessary agencies to make sure. And so we acted quickly and deactivated the passport to show that we are continuing on that strong path.
All right. Thank you so much, Prime Minister.
Yes.
We move now to the dividend payment, which was one of your accomplishments that you mentioned in your opening remarks. But there's still a few citizens who are having some issues with that. Some have not been paid as yet, and then others have been told that because they're in a job now that doesn't pay Social Security, they are not eligible. So is there an avenue by where people can
Right.
inquire about this?
Yeah, they can inquire right at Social Security.
Social Security?
I think what that point might be is if they're paying social levy. Social levy is a contribution you make monthly that is used for social development, the country's development, that you will never regain at the end of your work years. It is your contribution to country's development. So if you look at your slip, Ika, you see Social Security and social levy.
Social levy, okay.
So I think might be those who do not contribute to social levy that they might be speaking about. Right.
All right. So,
So it's not Social Security in a sense, it's social levy.
right. So those who have not been paid as yet, they will be paid.
Yeah, and those who are eligible to be paid and who have not been paid, we had put in extra time, and if there needs to be extra time to make sure, because this was the first time we would have done this, and we're talking thousands of people, and therefore we recognize that we needed some extra time, which we had put in. So if there are persons who qualified to get their dividend and did not get it, they need to inquire at Social Security, because it will be done.
All right. Thank you so much. We move right on down now to the legislative agenda for the government for this year. I know that there are a few upcoming parliaments. So can you give us an update as to what the government will be looking at?
Right, excellent. Ike, you're a good ombudsman. You bring the people's issue to me, and I'm here to answer. I like that. Even though people don't support me, you still make sure you got the tough questions
I got
for
to
me.
ask you, my lord.
I like that. I like that. Right. So when it comes to the legislative agenda, we are going to be dealing with the good governance agenda. So the integrity in public life, anti-corruption, we hope to bring in short order. I'm talking about in the next couple of weeks. Right. Because we want to have the full integrity in public life agenda completed by March. We have decided that we wouldn't do it in one reading, do a first reading, get the other members, the community and so forth to weigh in. We have a second reading and then a third reading. Because we had promised we would hardly ever bring any bill and pass it in a first reading. which we did some last year because of the critical nature.
Right.
The issue was raised by one of the members, and the Attorney General quickly acknowledged and said that he really wants to do it. That's why I like the Attorney General when it comes to this. When he noticed that there might be an error, he admits, correct it, and move on. That is how good leadership should be.
Indeed.
And so, therefore, we are going to do that. We are also going to be touching the marijuana issue, the cannabis issue.
Cannabis.
Yes, we are going to expand the expulsion of records. So initially they might have said a certain amount you have the expulsion, so we're going to expand it actually, so more people can have their records cleaned, so to speak, so that people can have a second opportunity. And then we are going to deal with the Rastafarian issue, because we don't have just an evangelical the ministry, the ecclesiastic affairs. That's the ministry. We have ecclesiastic and faith base, which means if whatever faith you might be in, or whatever you call it, that you practice some sort of worshiping and so forth, however you do it, whatever your spiritual orientation is. I'm trying to get the right word because different faith base call themselves different things. They have an opportunity like anybody else. And so we are going to make sure that they can have a place of worship, the Rastafarian community, that they can worship their God as they see fit, like anybody else, because this is a free and just society, and we are expanding that. And when it comes to the cannabis as well, we are going to be addressing that issue significantly as well, because that industry, we need to get involved. As we see what Biden had done in the United States with the records, setting the base, of course, for marijuana. In my estimation, cannabis, let me use that better term, really for the industry to open up. That is from our own analysis. But we'll do it here to bring justice to it, to bring justice to the Rastafarian community, a community that has suffered significantly because of their beliefs, because of the way they choose to worship their superior being. And we are saying everyone should have equal opportunity. So that is a major part of our legislative agenda as well. So right now, we are going after the good governance, which is significant and heavy, and we are also going off. The other part would be the Nevis-St. Kitts relationship. I've spoken to the Premier, and we are putting a committee together that would look at the Constitution, which would be aimed at making sure that we have a document. This is not some agreement. We heard about some Charleston Accord, which one politician said that was just a piece of paper, almost like whatever we signed on that was not significant. We want to make these changes in the Constitution so that the relationship of St. Kitts and Nevis, where there are kinks, that we can iron them out and set us on a better path of going forward as a federation, which serves St. Kitts better and Nevis better. But we have to take the bull by the horn when it comes to this one. It's a tough one, but we have to do it. And so that would be part of our agenda going forward as well. So immediately, that's our immediate legislative agenda, but there are a number of other significant things which we'll do in between.
All right. Before we move on, just to get some further information, after these pieces of legislation with regard to the cannabis are done, would you be delving any further into securing spaces where those who want to partake in marijuana outside of the religion?
Yes.
We're talking about public spaces
Yes,
now, because the AG would have mentioned that you can get a ticket for smoking in
Right,
public.
if you're smoking in public, yes.
Right,
And you'll have areas, designated areas, where you can go and smoke if you wish to smoke. People use the cannabis in different ways.
Right.
If one of the ways in which you use it is to smoke, then you'll have a designated area. In the same way, we'll say that smoking tobacco on the streets should not be allowed as well. So you can't do it for one and not the other. Right. And so you'll have designated areas. And so we are already looking at designated areas where people can go and do that.
So this will be something from the legislative, or is it will the legislative agenda inform the Cannabis Commission, and where are we with the Cannabis
So the
Commission?
Cannabis Commission is there. It is headed by Dr. Garfield Alexander at this time, and that commission is already looking at all of this. So the commission will meet with the AG, right, and all the law enforcement, all those the stakeholders, of course, as this legislative agenda is to be developed. So I would say it's a two-way street, that the commission can inform what the legislation should be based on their studies and research and so forth. And the AG's office can inform what is possible, how to go about doing it, and so forth. So this is a relationship that is very critical between that commission and the legislature, which we think would be fundamental in making sure that that agenda is achieved.
All right. All right, Prime Minister, thank you so much. We move on now to the civil service and the wage bill of the government.
Yes.
Does the government have a plan in place to reform the civil service? How soon can we see that? Coupled with that, folks have inquired about the peace program and where we are with that, or are we still paying out these,
Right.
large sums of monies to folks, and can we get a comprehensive report as to what happened in the program and how it will move forward?
Right. So with respect to the wage bill, that is a critical question. What we have recognized, especially during COVID, that small businesses and so forth. That is why we want to build out the small business and also to diversify the economy, to give persons real viable opportunities to work in different endeavors. That does not have to be inside the government. For example, you can have a viable, good small business where you make much more than coming into the government with the necessary protections. So we are concerned about the wage bill, which we saw went up significantly before the elections in 2022, which is actually threatening us significantly. And therefore, we have to quickly diversify the economy and create opportunities for people to gain wealth, grow wealth outside of having a civil servant job or government job. That is a fact. And so we are moving quickly to deal with that. So we're encouraging people. That is why we want such a robust small business sector, so that business can actually be a good option and a better option than necessarily coming into the civil service. So that is something that we have to address. When it comes to the peace program, as you know, the peace program is going through its reform. Nothing is done overnight. It's in transition. Right now, we are doing a full re-registration of the members on the peace program. We have also taken the decision that persons cannot benefit from multiple social programs. And the peace program will have different aspects for it, to help people to become certified and graduate, to help people to go into business and graduate, to help people to go through a reform process and graduate. So right now, we are in that stage of completing the registration. We are also in that stage where we'll bring in actual different types of programs. So you have youth skills involved. You'll have other type of training programs involved, like AVIC, to see which pathways we can put the young men on. I would like to say, and I give credit to them, remember it were the young men who came together and decided they want to stop killing each other. I want to put that and thank them for really reaching that position. Now they have reached that position, we have to do what we have to do to help them to fully reintegrate into the society. But as I said before, the program was used as a political ploy, because just before the elections in 2022, the numbers increased significantly. And only one person was determining who got on, was instructing who got on the piece. No evaluation, no analysis. Go on the piece, take this money, go on the piece. And so we saw ballooning of the numbers and also the payments. So we are waning it down and really bringing the program to be a wholesome. So I will say in about 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have a comprehensive report on the program so that people can know where we are and where we are going. We have been doing a significant amount of work to reform that program. It's not a program that could have been done by the snap of a finger. It had to be evaluated and a proper structure. But I would say that the program is very stable at this time, and it gives us the opportunity to reform it. And so people can see exactly what we are doing, and the goal is really to help the young men fundamentally who are on this program to transition into other ways and not to recruit anybody else to the program, because you'll have other options instead of just being on a peace program. So that is where we are at with it at this time.
All right. Thank you so much, Prime Minister. And my final question has to do with healthcare,
Right.
which you are the minister of.
Good.
Where are we in terms of reforming our healthcare? Where are we in terms of restoring the morale and the administrative and executive framework of the JN France Hospital to make it more viable? Because we hear the complaints every single day. The morale at the JNF France is basically non-existence, due to the politicking and the jostling and what's not. So where are we in terms of restoring that, and also where are we in terms of having a new hospital built and of course decked out with all the necessary equipment to have, a high standard of healthcare for our citizens here in St. Kitts and Nevis?
Right, Ike, I want to thank you for asking that question. What I would like to say, since today is also the Labour Party's or the Labour movement's birthday, is that part of our principle or philosophy is that healthcare is a human right. It is not supposed to be some privilege to some, and others are disadvantaged. And so, on the basis of that, that is why I always spoke about universal health care, not just health insurance or universal health insurance, but I spoke about universal health care. When we came in, we met a health sector that was badly damaged, is badly damaged. There's still some work to be done to correct that. For example, just from the administrative standpoint, the ministry was managed for about 2 to 3 years without a PS under the Honorable Wendy Phipps then. Also, since 2015, we have not had a PNO, who is a principal nursing officer, a significant position within any health structure, especially here in St. Kitts and Nevis. So how did they do it? I don't know. How were the nurses' issues addressed? I don't know. And therefore, that tells me that people were not too serious about the managing health here in St. Kitts and Nevis. Hardly any structure, any standard of procedures, any protocols to anything. I mean, so we had to go in there and take health and actually building it almost from the rudimentary level, which we are now getting a better handle on. For example, I mean, basic things like you had people working there who are not trained in basic life support, who are not certified in basic life support. As basic as that. So even before we start tackling the bigger questions, at least somebody's supposed to know how to pump a chest if somebody had stopped and keep up with their certification. Those are the basic things I'm talking about before we get even onto the bigger issues. And so what we have done, EK, the health sector also had no director of health institutions. So we have filled those positions with a director of health institutions. We have brought on somebody to deal with deal with health in terms of setting up systems and so forth. We have also brought in a PNO. We have brought in now a new PS. As you know, the contract for the last PS has expired. And we have brought in a new PS in the person of Dr. Sharon Archibald, who started just a few days ago. Dr. Jensen Morton, who is the Director of Health Institutions, and Mrs. Maynard, who deals with management in terms of creating systems and so forth. And that has helped. We've brought on Dr. Patrick Martin as a special advisor. And we have brought in Mr. Ted Hanley as a consultant to the Ministry of Health, because we have set the hospital on a path to be accredited. That path to accreditation is going to lead to the improvement of the delivery of quality, accessible, and affordable health care. Right? We need that. And as he mentioned, the PNO, who is Miss Bratcher, who had been, Dr. Bratcher, sorry, who had been a lecturer at the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant, and she has come in really to help to turn. And I say help because she is a team player and would incorporate the help of all the nurses to bring the nursing profession into good repute. So we are saying that we have the team now. So what I've pointed out, there's a new health management team. We met for the first time, EK, this morning, because we had to get the right people in the right places. When we got there, we owed everybody. We had to pay out just recently, past few days, $2 million or more in people who we owe all over the place. Totally. This was I'm not saying who or not is responsible. This is a fact that we found. That, you have to pay the oxygen people, basic things. I'm talking about very, very basic things. Now, once we take care of those basic things, we'll start to take care of the bigger things, and people will see actual improvement. For example, Poxton, we decked it out with doctors. At the hospital, we come up with a plan to deal with triage so that waiting time is much shorter, where we have now gone to seek to get retired nurses who are in good health and want to work, who can help us to triage. So when you come there, somebody can quickly triage you and determine if you need to see the doctor right away or you can wait. I want to say to people, seeing a doctor at the hospital does not depend on when you arrive. It depends on your illness or the severity
The
of the
severity
illness.
of the illness.
But really, you should see somebody quickly, within reasonable time, 15 minutes, half an hour, when you come in at least to assess your situation, even shorter than that, to assess your situation to determine and tell you, well, an experienced nurse can tell you that you don't need to see the doctor right now. Somebody else need to go ahead. And somebody can explain that. Because if you go up there with a little pain in your hand here and the nurse say, well, this ain't nothing too serious, you can wait. And you see a man coming in there with chest pain and a heart attack. You yourself will say, let him go, man, I could sit down out here, right? So that is what triage is about. And if we get that triage system in place, which we are dealing with presently, it will deal. There are other things like the Mary Charles on that side. We are seeking to put doctors over there. We have engaged doctors. Dr. Uda just resigned, and so a doctor is coming in shortly to replace him. So we want those outside hospitals to really to be able to treat patients and keep them out of the community and take the pressure off of JNF. Because we want to cut the wait time in JNF and the quality of care in JNF as well. And so we are going to put the hospital on a path to accreditation, which will affect every aspect of delivery, from IT, information technology, all the way down to the persons who keep the environment clean, and we want to thank them for that as well. So we are going to touch everybody. So health, I'm very optimistic about it. It's a lot of work because for too long it had been treated as if it was an afterthought, running it without a PS, running it without a principal nursing officer, running it without a director of health institutions. You have these significant positions to be filled. So who do the work when these significant leadership positions are left unfilled? Nobody. And that is why health deteriorated so significantly. And that is why we have taken the decision to make health a priority, and people who deserve good health care will see the improvement. Will it be perfect? No, because nothing will be perfect. But you'll be see significant. And putting us on a path of accreditation will keep our feet to the fire to make sure that we deliver to the people what the people deserve.
Right.
When it comes
So-
to the
so
new
that-
hospital,
So that include the labs and all that.
yeah,
techs
labs.
and
Yeah, we have, because when you do
right now
everything.
lab techs are
Lab techs, we have already reached out. We have already reached out in the private world. We have 2 lab techs who are coming in and cover certain shift for us to make up for the shortfall. We have already reached out to Cuba to help us, and we are recruiting in Jamaica as well so that we can have the necessary staffing at the lab. I want to thank the people at the lab because they have worked extremely hard. I know some of them might have become frustrated, and rightfully so, but I want to say that we are addressing that issue. So we have an answer to all of these. When it comes to the blood bank, there's a solution for that as well. And so I want to encourage people that when you're called upon to donate blood, that you go if you are eligible to donate blood. So every sector, from the EMS and the EMTs, from the blood bank, from the lab, from the X-ray department, the doctors, the nurses, every single aspect of the hospital, when we are put on the accreditation path, which will be shortly, we will look at that as a project, because we want a hospital that is accredited. It will take us a few years, but just being on the path means there would have to be significant improvement in order to be recognized by a body to say that your hospital is accredited.
Right.
And so I'm excited about that. It sounds somewhat contrary to what we see today, but when I saw that team and I know what that team can produce, and when I look at where we are taking it, and now that the government is settling in, I myself would have more time for health to make sure that these things are done. And when it comes to the hospital, at this time, the director of health institution will be engaging the health workers so that they can have their input into what the new hospital should look like. And so we want to start the new hospital. I'm aiming for this year. Once we get back that, we do the rendering, and we're getting ready to break ground so that we can start our new hospital. But it's not just about a new hospital or the physical structure. It is, but we need a climate smart hospital. There's no two ways around that. With climate change, we need a climate smart hospital, so that if it's one place should be standing after any major storm, should be our hospital, and in a functional way to take care of our people. But we must also have our people well trained, systems in place to make sure that we can deliver quality health care to our people and to those who visit us. So I am optimistic, and I feel good about where the team is heading.
All right, well, Prime Minister, thank you so much for answering those questions in a very, very, very short time. And we have a couple of minutes to spare,
Yes.
so I think we can open the telephone lines
Right.
so you can interact with the citizenry of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Thank you
Caller,
very
you are
much.
on All right, we missed that one. Let's go straight to this next one. Call you on. Go ahead quickly.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, but I'm going to
Hello.
make a couple statements. Now, with
Can
regard to
you
the
can you
minimum
can you
wage,
make your statements as brief as
right,
you
very
possibly
brief.
can?
With regard to the minimum wage, I know you talked last week to the news reporters and told them that, you're working on it, and that's very good. But with the cost of living just increasing all the time, I'm afraid that, those monies are going to be wiped out quickly. In other words, if someone is making 360 and you take it to 500, that extra 170 or 130, whatever it is, it's going to be wiped out quickly. So what is the government doing about controlling, the cost of living in terms of pricing?
All right. Thank you so much for your
That's
call.
one. And secondly, the Christoph Harbour situation. I know the reporters asked about it last week, and you said the government was not writing off any debt. But when people are bandying about the talk that the debt is going to be written off, it means that the debt probably is not being serviced. Can you address that for us? Because remember, they borrowed this money from the CBI, and, as far as I'm concerned, I have a right to know about it. So let us know if it's up to date, if they're honoring the obligation to the Federation.
All right. Thank you so much for your question, Prime Minister.
Right. I want to thank the caller for her call, and these are very important questions. When it comes to the issue of Christoph Harbour, there is not a loan agreement. We have an investment in Christoph Harbour. So if Christoph Harbour is presently valued at about $600 million, the country earn 30% of
30%
it.
of that.
So calculate that, EK. 30%
Evan?
of 600 million, close to 200 million.
200 million, my
So
lord.
we own the country now. Well, indirectly, but the SIDF owns about $200 million of Christoph Harbour. We can decide what we want to do with it. The truth is, we had put in 16 million. As a matter of fact, there is a plan that we can get that in land and sell the land and make SIDF can sell the land and make a profit. So I want to let people know it's not a loan, it's an investment, and we own 30% of Christopher Harbour, and we can decide how we dispense of it. However, I would say that we are in a very good position.
Right.
So I want people to start thinking, rethink.
Right.
So the caller spoke about a loan, but just to inform her, there's no loan arrangement here. There's an investment, and we, the SIDF, owns 30% of what you see over there,
So
which
we
is a
could
lot of money.
have the infrastructure develop even further.
Yes.
And in the next 20, 30 years, it can cost more.
But it will cost more,
There
because
you
if we invest more in it, it can reach up to $1 billion, which means the country will earn about $300 million in there. Right? So I just wanted to clarify that when it comes to loan to investment.
Right.
So you do have an investment there. And in the long run, when you look at an investment that you invest, let's say $60 million US, and now you're looking that you might have close to 80 million. I mean, if you say 16 to 80, that's like a good return.
That's a good piece of sugar.
That's a good return. And that is what I want our people to start thinking about investments. Now,
Right.
the government can decide, do we just take our $16 million and go? Do we take it in land, sell the land, make a profit? We have multiple options, but the government is in a strong, the SIDF is in a strong position. Let me put it that way. When it comes to the cost of living, and the caller is right, we have been doing a number of significant things to temper the cost of living. For example, energy. And I want to speak in energy in the broad context, in terms of at the pump and what Skelec does. We look at what we can invest to temper the prices. So we look at the pump. It may not be, it's about 13 something now. I don't know, maybe, right.
One is 13, one is 16.
Right, I think this is right. So what we're dealing with is the gas itself. And we recognize that it had come down to some extent. But we are really investing a lot to subsidize Skelec. There's a cost called the FDC. We pay that for everybody. So your Skelec bill is significantly lower because we invest about $9 million per month in Skelec to deal with the cost of living. So I want people to know that we are already investing a lot. When it comes to the basic food, we are investing already a lot in making sure that those food prices don't go up too high. However, we will keep analyzing the situation, and we will keep doing what we have to do to temper the cost of basic goods. But we are investing a lot already. That is what I wanted to put out there. Now, the other thing is the agriculture has to come on. And I want to thank the Minister of Agriculture for his work. Because we have to start producing more food. Imagine that during the height of the COVID, when the then Prime Minister was asked about food, he said the boats are coming. We believe that we have to invest in agriculture so that we can produce more food. We believe we can use the technology, different techniques. We believe we have to prioritize it as such. And if persons had the opportunity to listen to the budget debate, the Minister of Agriculture talked about shade houses, how we're going to deal with the starch issue of bananas and so forth. He spoke about helping farmers to make sure they produce more. New technology. So we are looking at it to make sure that we just cannot depend on, because you can only cut to some extent. We are importing inflation. Because if the thing costs an extra $4 in the United States, when it comes in, it's going to cost an extra $400. Then we have to decide how much we're going to pay to cut it. So we are importing the inflation. So this is not just a short-term approach. We have to look at the medium term and the long term in terms of tempering the cost of living and stop the importation of inflation. But we'll keep monitoring it. And what we have to do in this time to make sure that people can eat and live, we will do. It will cost a lot of money, which I will level with the people with. Because when we temper the cost of living, it is because the government has to invest a significant amount of money. And we have to appreciate that as well. And so we'll level with the people where we are. Just as I'm leveling with how much we are pumping into energy so that people don't have extremely high electricity costs, so that businesses could have gotten a break. And therefore that is seen in the broader context of what is at the pump and what energy and what is being used as energy in terms of accessing SCELEC. So we are looking at that as a sector, and so that is how we are approaching it. So we are already doing a lot, and we'll keep doing a lot, but we do recognize that we have to do for ourselves. We have to produce more food. And so as I said to the Minister of Agriculture, we have to get going. So we have to deal with the monkey problem, we have to deal with farmers getting the support, we have to deal with food being produced. And the Minister of Agriculture, he himself is a farmer, and so he understands even better than me what is required. And so he's working hard, and he has my full support and the cabinet's full support, the government's full support in terms of achieving the goals of producing more, which is a significant way of dealing with the cost of living.
All right, thank you, Prime Minister. Collier, go ahead quickly.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ike. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. And how are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Quickly, concerning the health center of St. Peter's, well, it's been a while now. It's on pause. When will we start to see construction and that health center again? Number two question is that the guy that I heard that concerning St. Kitts passport and the outer there, how long did he have our passport holding? And free Dr. Joe, you know what I would like to see in St. Kitts, especially those people who cut across the road, meaning I don't know if it is public works or water department or whoever it is. What they would do, they would cut the road, do whatever they have to do, and leave everything just so when you look, this big deep hole people going into, when you go up a Cairn, going down towards the gut, man, there's a deep hole inside there. I believe it is about time that whether public works or whoever, come back and do something, fix it. Don't just leave it like that. Because, after a while it will dig out, people got to come pull it up. I would like to see more of them things,
All right.
being complete. But so far, Dr. Ju, you are doing a good job, and I keep praying for you. May God bless you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your call. Let's take another one quickly, Prime Minister, and then you have four questions. Collier, go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, EK.
Good afternoon. Ask your question quickly, please.
Yeah, in the house, I saw something and I don't like see it in a health campus, Something happened down in the infirmary and two young people, they're just looking at the lady falling down. You got to work on that. They need to be fired, Come remember, I'll have get old one of these days are gone.
All right, thank you so much. Let's take another one quickly. Caller, all right, we missed that one. Please, we can take another call quickly and get the Prime Minister to answer before time runs out on us. Caller, you're on. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. From since quarter to 2, I tried to get in who asked a question. I'll let who
You're
ask the
in now,
prime minister.
caller. Ask the question. You're taking up time, please.
Please to ask the prime minister when you turn step workers change from step to government.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Prime Minister.
Right. Thank you. I can start with the step workers to government. That was promised by the past administration, and when we got in there, we realized that some people became auxiliary workers. Hardly any of them became permanent workers, as if there were any space. And so that is a question. We are now evaluating that step program as we are evaluating the PAP program, and we are, of course, fitting in people based on where there are available spaces. However, we do recognize that there is an issue with this that needs to be addressed and addressed comprehensively. And so, at this point in time, I would say we are working on that to see how we can regularize as many persons as possible. That was, of course, a promise from the past administration, but we want to make sure that workers in St. Kitts and Nevis have a good opportunity. So I know that the minister responsible for STEP would be giving the people an update from time to time as to where the STEP is, the incorporation into government jobs. The other thing we are looking at, there are STEP workers who are working in private businesses. And of course, we encourage private businesses that these persons have been very fundamental in your business, that you can take them on. Step workers can be given the opportunity to form small businesses, which can be more viable than working in government itself as well. So we want to give people multiple options. There are step workers who might want to go and further study so that they can advance themselves or academically to achieve more based on their own goals and so forth. So we are looking at this comprehensively of how we can get people to transition into other areas. When it comes to the card in home, a video was sent. Of course, I would ask about it, the PS who would send me a full evaluation. But I want people to know I take the card in home very seriously. I remember when hardly anybody used to want to go to the card in home to work as doctors. I went. I tell them, let me go. Not only that, I visited the card in home and spent time with them on Christmas Day past. I say, I am going to spend my Christmas Day with the people at card in home. So I'm not just saying that. I recognize the importance of making sure that our card in home is upgraded, and there are a number of things that we will be doing there. And this did not come because there's a video circulating. Yet I'm to receive the report, because sometimes things you see are not exactly what they seem to be. But nonetheless, I want to let the people know I take the card in home so seriously that is where I spent a good part of my Christmas Day, so that I could have interacted with them and let them know that the Prime Minister remembers them. And so we'll be doing what we have to do to make sure we continue the improvement and upgrade of the card in home. When it comes to the passport matter, I'm seeking to get the specifics because the question was very, very specific. So I'm going to ask the PS, the acting PS for national security to send it. But in the broad sense, what that information came, we quickly deactivated the passport. And that passport would have been held sometime before even I got into office. That I know in the broader sense. With respect to St. Peter's Health Center, we had a significant meeting when it came to the St. Peter's Health Center, which included my office, myself, included Public Works, included the contractor, included the mediator for that project, and my word was, get that project restarted. The PS for Public Work is doing the work on it, and we hope we will restart within the first quarter of this year. St. Peter's has to get its health center. I am fed up of seeing our elders in the community having to be in a bus stop, or even mothers with children who come to the clinic have to be sitting outside on a small little veranda. And even though there's a big sign that say health center coming soon, it has not come. But I will make sure that the health center is delivered for the people of St. Peter's this year. It has to be done. And so that the people of St. Peter's can be served excellently when it comes to healthcare. I think those were the matters.
Yes. All right. So it's now 3:05. We'll take just about 2 more telephone calls and allow the Prime Minister to answer, give his wrap, and then we can wrap up the issues program for today. Caller, Iran, go ahead, please.
Good day, Mr. Prime Minister.
Good day.
Yes, in a recent press conference, someone asked about the passport numbers. And I think he referred them to the CBI office. Um, I don't expect exact figures, but what would be helpful or what would be nice to know is if the program is stable, the passports, are we still receiving the quantities of applications and improving the same as before? In other words, the direction. Can we be assured that the program is thriving while we work on diversification, since it's one of the main pillars? Can we be assured that enough money will be coming in so that government can take care of its program? And can you do the same thing with the tourism too, which is another pillar? I know that there seem to be lots of ships coming in, so cruise tourism at least is on the up and up. Can we say the same thing about things like the over visitors? Those would be my questions.
All right, thank you so much for your questions, caller. Let's take this final call. Caller, you're on. Go ahead.
Greetings, I.
Blessed, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay. Extending the greetings to the honorable guest in studio. Yes, friends, you know the issue we want, but before we go there, let me touch agriculture a little bit. You see, agriculture, His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie the First called it a sacred task. And you know, with the fertile 6032 that we're in,
Yes.
you know, it is very, very, I cannot find a word to say how important it is for us to set this urgently.
Yes.
Yeah. So we want to say best wishes, best of.
Yes.
All right. You see the CBI sugar cake hearing, when the CBI, we want to humbly and rightly ask you to return to the table concerning the sharing of it, because we do not think that citizens, that people who do not born here, when the CBI was who don't born here should get it. When the CBI was put in place, you know, we did not anticipate this sharing, this sugar cake sharing that is going on now. All right? It is happening, and give thanks. But it should be just given to people who born here. Not when we put it in the money scheme of things, you know. When somebody from Guyana, Jamaica, them place to get $100 EC dollar, you know. EC dollar have clout, you know, and the same home that is thousands that, you know, Prince. When somebody think it's Nevis get $1, you know, it's just get $100, you know, so it's $100 spending money, you know. So please go forward to the table and consider that decision in that sharing. We have other issues, but time, blessed love, best wishes.
Blessed.
All right, thank you so much, caller.
Yeah, that's it.
Prime Minister, those are
Yes.
your questions, and of course, you can go straight into your wrap
Right.
after.
With respect to the dividend, I want to thank the caller for giving his perspective on it. As you know, when you introduce a new program, especially a revolutionary program like this, you always want to hear the feedback of your citizens. And so he has given his feedback, and that is something that will be looked at as other things will be looked at. So I want to thank the caller for, analyzing from his own perspective what it is, and to, bring to the government, to bring to myself what we should consider. With respect to agriculture, he said something that really touched me when he said that agriculture is a sacred task, and we should look at agriculture as such. I had the opportunity about 2 Sundays ago to meet with a cooperative that is headed by Mr. Solomon Morton, and that cooperative awarded Mr. Luther Clark. We know Mr. Luther Clark is a farmer, a good, solid farmer who has been contributing to our food stock here for a long time. We had Mrs. Peets, who was also awarded. I think we had Mr. Wigley, who was also awarded. I hope I have not forgotten anybody, but if I do, please accept my apologies. And when I see those persons who are serious in the agricultural industry would be recognized, even there was a small ceremony, I said I had to be present, because I recognize the sacredness of agriculture and what they do on a daily basis to make sure that we can have food, and especially now that we want to deal with the escalation cost of the cost of living. So that is important. So we have to really invest in our agriculture. I'll give it the seriousness that it deserves. When it comes to the CBI, he touched it. The CBI, we have done a number of things to strengthen the CBI program legislatively. We have not seen any significant hit to it. As a matter of fact, the strengthening of it, has been welcomed by many. I think that the new CEO has been well received, Mr. Michael Martin. I want to thank him and wish him all the best. And he has been doing an excellent job. And those changes, of course, will cause discussion. But what I want to say, and I promised, and we promised as we got into office, that we'll strengthen the program and seek to protect it and protect our country. And we have done that thus far, and we'll continue to do that to make sure that we get that right balance. So we are definitely working on that. And the question is asked, are we doing enough to make sure that we continue to get the inflows to pay for our social programs? We are diversifying, but the question is asked at this particular time to make sure that we have enough revenue to deal with our economy, and we have seen that, and we continue to do that. As the other aspects of the economy open up, that will give us more opportunity, for example, in tourism. In tourism, we see that the cruise ships are back, and they are back. I want to say that the Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Marsha Henderson, is doing an excellent job there. She went out. When people were saying we were traveling, and I said, boy, better she travel every day, because each time she travels, a ship come. Right? She really put in the work. Quickly we went to work to make sure that in the post-COVID space that we were not disadvantaged with respect to other countries, and we are seeing the benefits of those. Right now, she's working on making sure that we increase our overstays, but more importantly, she is partnering with us at the Office of the Prime Minister to deal with interregional travel. And I think in short order, we will have a major announcement to be made. So we are working significantly to make sure that our country would be in a good stead to move forward and continue to grow. So those are the questions that were asked, and I want to really thank the callers for asking these questions. These questions are good and solid questions that should be asked of any leader of any country. And so I want to thank the citizens for paying attention, for making sure that they bring these questions to the fore. And EK, as the government settles in, I look forward to more interaction like this with the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, so that we can have that constant rapport. We will never agree on everything, but I want to say to the people of this country that I would be upfront, open with them as to where we are at and where we are going. But I want them to know that they have an A team in government that is working hard to advance St. Kitts and Nevis. I want St. Kitts and Nevis. We want St. Kitts and Nevis to become a sustainable island state, and we will not rest until we get to achieve that. So I want them to know we are on the job, we are working hard. And to my constituency, I had been off a few months, but you would understand, being the Prime Minister and a new government, I had to work hard to help to settle in the new administration and to settle down in government so that the government could have continued to function and can continue to function. We are in a much better state of that, which our transition has gone fairly smoothly. And so you'll see me back on the streets where I like to be. Just yesterday I was in Connery on the streets, hanging out here, hanging out there, meeting the constituents, talking to them, seeing what their issues are and seeing how we can address them. And today I will be back in my constituency. And I think I appreciate that my team is working so hard so that as they work, I have the opportunity to be among the people where I love to be, and to be, of course, in my hometown in St. Peter's, where I grew and I bred. So, Ike, we have been working hard, we have been delivering to the people, and we intend to deliver even more.
The Prime Minister, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to stop by and visit Freedom, your home.
For many years.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Have yourself a great day. Be safe. And thanks to you and your team for all the work that you're doing so far.